Here. Okay, so where art meets reality is just kind of what I've named it here. That's my Instagram, staring at stereos. I will warn you beforehand that it's not just stereos there. There's some art as well and some fan art. So yeah, just a warning. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Basically how we can combine art and stereo and how I've done it. This is going to speak about how I kind of got bored with what I could take stereos of in lockdown, mostly just forests, and so how I could add to that. But it actually started a lot earlier. So these first things might not be the most impressive, but just kind of shows how I learned. So here, where it all started, that was probably 2 years ago, November 2019. Just a little quick sketch of a pencil and a tape dispenser that was sitting on my desk. And all I did here was just close my left eye, draw the right side, close my right eye, draw the left side. And it doesn't line up super well. There's a lot of rivalries, but it shows that the concept works here. So you can see the pencil kind of sticking up. And it showed me that I honestly didn't have to be as precise as I thought I would have to be for it to kind of come together. Our brains are pretty amazing at doing that for us. So yeah, that's just how it started. And then this is the very next thing I did. So a hallway. And if there's something weird about the border, that's because this was so early on in my experiments that I didn't really know the difference between cross and parallel. So I drew it in cross view, even though I can't view cross view. I had always been previewing parallel, so that confused me for a moment, but I've switched it back here to parallel. And what I did was just, measure the angles with a ruler and draw straight lines. And then here, I hope you can see my cursor, measure up to a certain landmark on each pillar and then just connect them on both sides. So I didn't really have to figure out the angles. I just used a ruler. So I was pretty happy with that one. Kind of proof of concept. So I kept moving on. This one is just really quick. It's not very exciting, but there, again, it's an experiment with lines and things and angles. And I just wanted to include it because it shows how I learned how the depth actually works without using a reference. So you can see this dark area in the middle is going into the screen. And how I think about that is the two dark areas are moving away from each other, from each view. So things moving away, apart from each other, go in, things moving together, come out. And that's just always how I think of it. So this is the most recent kind of little sketch on paper that I've done. And it's a lot better than the others, just more precise, I guess. And you can see here that kind of right at the stereo window, we have this outer square of the column because it's, on the exact same point on both views. And then again, the black square in the middle is going in to the depth. So it's away from each other. Yeah, so that's just how I think about it. And it's not perfect. Again, I should have drawn these diagonal lines before the squares, but our eyes put it together when you look in stereo. So yeah. Okay, so this is something different, not just lines anymore. And I should give a shout out to Andrew Lauren. I don't think he's here today, but it was solid geometry stereo cards that he shared that inspired me to do this. So it's some kind of pyramid here, pentagon pyramid. And then I've added these dots in, and I was kind of happy with those results, but it didn't look as good as I thought it could. So I added these connections, and then you can really see how the depth of the dots goes around there. So again, somewhat interesting, not perfect, but I was enjoying myself. And that was, again, all this was probably a year and a bit ago. So, oh, yes, and these are just little sketches I did. This is for Easter. That's an owl viewer, and I just drew a little bird on it. Yeah, again, with closing the left eye, drawing, closing the right eye. Not very precise, but interesting. And then I did the same thing for Thanksgiving. So there's a little turkey. His viewer doesn't work too well because his eyes are so close together, but I just included this because you can see it's a bit sharper. There's not as many rivalries and inconsistencies because I actually only drew one, and that is, I drew one side of it, and that's kind of something else I want to point out. So he's completely symmetrical, and so I drew this left side here where he's looking slightly towards the center. And that way I could just mirror the image to draw the right-hand viewpoint. So it lines up better, and yeah, kind of cool proof of concept. That's the first time I did that mirroring thing, which will come back later. But yeah. And this is something else I find interesting. So you can see here, I've kind of made the stairs go down into the page. Again, with just kind of thinking of what would it look like from the left, what would it look like from the right. And it does work, so I'm happy with this. I will say I did try a bigger version with a whole city and things coming out, and that was not as successful, so I'm not showing it here. It was quite a failure, actually. But proof of concept, it works, so maybe in the future I'll do something that is a little more involved than this, but yeah, that's something. Okay, here, so this is back to a long time ago, one of the first kind of painting conversions I ever did. This was before I knew of the amazing program stereophotography. So this was a different program that I used, very basic. And it's also before I knew how the stereo window worked, so I apologize for that. It's a bit wrong there, but drew this moon inspired by Jamie Cooper's photograph of the moon. And yeah, just created a depth map with the black and white, and then made it into a stereo pair here. So there's lots of things that are wrong. There are some stars missing from the left side, and obviously the craters in the moon are much too deep. And but anyway, it was my first attempt, and I was happy with it at the time. So happy with it that I did this right after. Of course, I jumped into something very hard because I always go all in on things, but so this is a landscape I drew of the harbor in Hamburg from the Alster River, and that's where I was living at the time. I used that same program, which I don't even remember the name of now, but you can see there's still some shadows here of the building spires that didn't fully disappear, but I think there is still some nice depth in the buildings, and it was cool to me to see one of my paintings become more lifelike as it was turned into stereo, because that's what stereo photography and stereo views do. So that was cool, and we'll come back to paintings later. But now we're going into some digital art and edits here. So this is the first thing I ever did. Is actually for my friend Rachel, Curio Curator on Instagram. It's just some little shapes moved around and not too exciting, but then I found this program. So not that I'm plugging it, but this is Krita. I'm sure some people use Photoshop or something else, but Krita is free and it's good enough for what I need. And I don't get any money from bringing it up, but just in case people were wondering, this is how I make all my edits and also all my drawings, digital drawings. So this is the first thing I made with Krita. And this is McNeil Bay. It's a harbor, well, not really. It's a small bay in Victoria. And I've added here a little ghost ship. So the ship picture in itself that I put in here isn't a stereo photo. But it's kind of a little bit hard to notice, and I did transform it a bit on one side to try to give the sails a stereo appearance. So hopefully that worked. But overall, I think it's quite nice and good for a first attempt. And then we moved on to this. So that's me twice, kept with the ghost theme. So this is actually a combination of 3 individual stereos. So 2 of me and one of the fireplace in the background there. So I've just superimposed myself because I don't live with any other stereo photographers, so no one else can take selfies for me. But I do have a bathroom mirror that's on a cabinet, and so I can open the cabinet cupboard, and that gives me the 2 different angles of the mirror. So that's the best way that I found to take stereo selfies, because the lighting is going to be consistent, because I'm actually just taking one picture and the mirror does the 2 viewpoints for me. So yeah, there's that one. Oh yeah, this one, this is just another quick experiment I did. The first thing I actually drew digitally. So I drew those little notes and placed them over my old battered guitar here. And yeah, it probably emulates the cacophonous sound when I play. It's not very good. So anyway, this is the next thing I did. So it's the cover of my presentation or whatever. That's my hand there on that same mirror, actually. But this is nice in itself, just getting rid of the background, making it all black. But adding some digital art to it, I made this. So kind of gives the illusion, or what I was going for is the back facing hand coming out of a different dimension. So these wispies here were all done digitally, just with a digital paintbrush. And so I did them in different layers to create the different depths. So you kind of have the back layer, mid, and front. And again, I transformed them a bit to come out at all angles. And yeah, again, not perfect, nothing ever is, but I'm happy with it. And I think it's still one of my favorite stereos or stereo art pieces that I've done. Hopefully you can see it and it's not too dark on your screens there. And this is another kind of stereo art thing that I did. And again, I stole from Jamie Cooper's excellent space stereophotography. That's the moon, obviously, and I've just put different phases together, wrapped them up there. So you have full moon, and you have the, I think it's a waning half and waning crescent there. So yeah, somewhat interesting. And then here is what I've been doing recently. So again, as I said, COVID, things are still pretty, well, maybe they're opened up a bit, but during lockdown, at least, there was just really nature photography that I could be getting. So I was growing bored with that. And I thought, well, what can I do to spice this up? So I should give credit to my friend Paula for kind of inspiring this. She did similar windows with color versus black and white, but I wanted to take it a bit further. So in these windows here, they're actually magnified a bit. So the depth is a bit enhanced and they're magnified, which I think gives a pretty cool view. Although if you stare too long, it does confuse your brain, I think. But at a glance, interesting. And I think I'll be doing a bit more of this in the future. Yeah, I think it's cool. And then this is something similar. Oh, sorry. If I'm going over time, just let me know. I'm almost done. I just, yeah. Sorry. So this is I've added a circle as like a portal to, again, some other purple dimension there. Just change the colors, but no magnification here. And this is what I was talking about when I was coming back to that mirroring thing. So the turkey was the first example. This is another. The arch is just an image I found on the internet, but it is close enough to straight on that you can mirror it to get that tiny bit of stereo that you need. So I mirrored it to the other side, and then I changed it to black and white inside to go to a world without color, as it says. Again, just trying to find interesting things to add to various trees and fallen logs and stuff.
But Lindsay, you also had the change that symbol on the keystone because it isn't mirrored.
That's right. Yes, it isn't. So I did just keep that normally. And there is a bit of color change that I had to do as well. So yes, right. The K here is just straight copied over because it wouldn't have worked otherwise. So this is another landscape that I painted, and again, I've converted it here. It's a bit better than my first attempts. There was quite a long gap between those and this, and Pascal actually helped me do some of this. So hopefully it looks good. He can be the judge of that. But yeah, I do this for my granddad who loves to fish, and then I converted it kind of on my own time because it was something simple that I could start with here. And obviously the clouds wouldn't look like that in real life with, you know, there's the stereo there, but I thought it looked fun and interesting. So that's the last one, and then I'll just leave you with this. It's not art. Well, it is, it's photography, but there's nothing added. It's just, this is a mono view, and it's something I like to show people because you can't see anything here. It's just rocks on a beach. This is actually in Sydney, BC. But when you put it to stereo, you can see what's actually there. So there are 4 little men that my friend and I made and out of stacks of rocks, inukshooks, and yeah, they suddenly appear with the stereo. So that's just kind of showing you the magic. And that is my presentation. Hopefully I didn't go over time. Thank you for listening.